Should the Dodgers trade for Mike Trout? That's coming up next on Dodgers Dugout. What's going on, Dodgers Nation? Doug McCain here. My friends call me D-Mac. You can follow me on X, Instagram, and TikTok at DMac_LA. And if you haven't yet, be sure to subscribe to the Dodgers Nation YouTube channel. Do me a big favor and hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. And if you really want to support the channel, you want to see us post even more Dodgers content, smash that like button. And as always, I want your takes down below in the comment section. Today's Dodgers Nation question of the day: should the Dodgers trade for Mike Trout? Would you want to see LA pursue a trade for one of the best players of his generation? Let me know down below. And for all latest Dodgers news, head over to DodgersNation.com. So this upcoming offseason for the Dodgers promises to be a very interesting and hopefully an active one for LA. Last season they were quiet. They had their hands in their pockets. They didn't make very many moves, and the moves they did make were one-year deals. Noah Syndergaard on a one-year $13 million deal. David Peralta, one-year $6.5 million deal. JD Martinez, one-year $10 million deals. And the reason why they made those deals was to maintain that financial flexibility in the hopes that they could land the biggest fish of them all in Shohei Ohtani. But let's say that doesn't happen. Could they pivot to a trade for Mike Trout? Well, yesterday, Trout, he talked about his future with the Angels, and he said, "I go through this every year. These are private conversations I have with owner Artie Moreno and team president John Carpino. I'm doing the same thing I've done the last 13 years, going into the offseason, clearing my mind, going into spring training, wearing an Angels uniform." So that sounds to me like a guy who's saying the right things at the right time, so he doesn't want to make headlines. He's always been a private superstar, someone that has been aggressive about his team and the moves they make and trying to get to a winner. That's just not Mike Trout's personality. But the question is, if the Angels are going to enter a down-to-the-studs rebuild, would they go to Trout and mutually try to find a landing spot? Or does Artie Moreno say to himself, I'm going to lose Shohei Ohtani, who the Angels are still expected to make a big offer to, and once that domino falls and Ohtani's on another team, then does he go to Trout and say, okay, let's make something work. Let's try to find you a team, a landing spot, because we're not going to be contending here with the Angels. Now, I do think that is possible. I also think that the Angels might say to themselves, well, we at least have Mike Trout. He's an iconic player. There's no doubt about it. This is someone who's a first-ballot Hall of Famer. When healthy, he's still one of, if not the best players in the game. I will say his numbers, they have taken a dip. This season with the Angels, in 82 games, he slashed 263, 367, 490, and a 134 weighted runs created plus. That is a good season for some players, but not good if you're Mike Trout. That is the lowest weighted runs created plus that he's posted since 2011 when he was 19 and playing just 40 games. You're talking about someone at its peak who had a 188 weighted runs created plus, a 189 weighted runs created plus, someone who had 10.1 WAR in his rookie season. So Mike Trout is someone who has been on the decline. The question is, if you can get him healthy and you can keep him healthy, which most teams out there think they have the best training staff and they can figure guys out, but I don't care what training staff you have, Father of Time is undefeated. And usually as players get older, you see the injuries increase. And even if they're on the field, they're not the players that they were. They lose some athleticism. They lose some physical abilities. You lose some quick twitch. And I still think that Mike Trout has some really good years in him. I wouldn't doubt that. But look at the numbers I just read you off. Yes, those are career years for a lot of players, but that is a down year for Mike Trout. I do think that's injury related. I do think that he's starting to go on the decline. And for the last 7 seasons, he's dealt with some nagging injuries. He's missed significant time. Since opening day in 2021, he's played in 237 of his team's 486 games. So you're talking about less than half the time he's been on the field. He had a nagging calf strain that cost him most of the 2021 season. He played in just 119 games in 2022 due to back problems. He had a handmade bone surgery that limited his ability in 2023, where he played in just 82 games and made only 1 appearance after July 3rd. So he has basically been a part-time player. He's been in there half the time over the last 3 seasons, and I don't see how that would improve. I think that he is a first-ballot Hall of Famer, one of the game's great players of all time, but what's made this Dodgers run so sustainable is they've made sensible signings. You got Mookie Betts at 27, okay, and then you sign that $365 million contract. Even when you got Freddie Freeman, when he was at 32 years old, that was a 6-year, $162 million contract. And if you look at Mike Trout's contract, he turned 32 last month, and he's owed $248.45 million over the next 7 years, and he's coming off those 3 injury-plagued seasons. So to me, that is a major red flag. That is a big, bright red flag, and I think for me, in the words of the great Randy Jackson, that's a no from me, dog. Now, would I consider it if the Angels were willing to pay $15 or $20 million per year on that contract, and then you give up some prospects? I might consider that at that point. And look, the reality is, could the Dodgers trade him? Yeah, absolutely. Could the Dodgers trade for him and acquire him because they have one of the best, most robust farm systems and the deepest farm system in the game? Yes, it would make sense for the Angels to acquire some of the Dodgers pitching prospects. You go up and down, and I think if you look at what we saw from Stephen Cohen, that the smart owners that have money, that don't have a deep farm system, the best thing to fast track that is essentially buy those prospects. And the Dodgers, they've got the goods. Like I said, they're Amazon. Whatever you want, they've got. You want to lead pitching prospect, we got that. You want position players, we got that. You give him a Josue DePaula. Give him a Diego Cartaya. You have pitching prospects up and down this roster. You're not going to give them a Bobby Miller, anything like that, but I think at that point, it would be a situation where the Dodgers would only consider it if they were going to get value from it. And I know that this organization would only do that if they felt like, okay, we're getting Mike Trout for pennies on the dollar or a couple quarters on the dollar. They're not going to overpay for Mike Trout just because they're desperate for a superstar. And you look at this outfield, Jason Hayward, he could be gone. David Peralta, he could be gone. You still have James Outman. So, yeah, it does make sense for them to add another outfielder in theory, but I'm just not so sure that it makes a ton of sense to go after Mike Trout. And the reality, too, is that, one, the ball is in Mike Trout's court. He has a no-trade clause. He would have to go to the organization and say, okay, I'm not happy here. I want to go to a place where I can win, and I want to not be a part of this rebuild. Can we work together? But since when has Mike Trout ever done that? I mean, Mike Trout is the same guy that signed that huge extension. He's the same guy that signed a $360 million 10-year extension back in March of 2019, and a part of that deal was that they wouldn't be able to deal him without his permission. I think he's comfortable in Anaheim. I think that, of course, he's already locked up a Hall of Fame career. The only question is, how desperate is he to winning? How important is winning and playing on the big stage for Mike Trout? Because he's shown us that he hasn't really said anything to the media that would indicate that he wants to desperately be in the postseason to the point where he wants to force his way out of Anaheim. And if you're the Angels, I think it could be somewhat of a get-out-of-jail-free card if you get a franchise like the Phillies or the Cubs or the Yankees or the Red Sox or one of these big-market teams to take on Mike Trout, considering his injury history, considering that he's been on the field half the time for the last 3 seasons. So if you're the Angels, it does make sense to move him, especially when you consider that they don't have depth on the margins. They don't have the kind of team that sees any type of contending in the near future. So I think if I was the Angels, I would desperately try to trade Mike Trout to see what I could get for him, because who knows, maybe next season you start off more nagging injuries, the trade value continues to plummet. And it's just a tough situation all around, but I just hope for the betterment of baseball that Mike Trout does force his way out of Anaheim. Hashtag free Mike Trout. It's absurd to think that he's played in just 3 postseason games for his entire career. That'd be like if Michael Jordan played for the Clippers or Patrick Mahomes played for the Detroit Lions. The fact that Mike Trout has not been on that big stage under the bright lights for the world to see, I think it's really a loss for all fans. I think we've been robbed of peak Mike Trout because of the ineptitude of the Angels. Now, will that happen? I don't think it will. I think Trout's going to be a good soldier. He's going to go to training camp, like you said, wearing that Angels uniform and be the Mike Trout that we've seen throughout his career. He's comfortable. He doesn't love the attention. He's never expressed an interest to force his way out of Anaheim. He signed that big extension in the first place. So I think it all depends on if Mike Trout wants to put his foot down and say, I want to take control of this career. I want to enhance my legacy. Because just think about this for a second. When Mike Trout retires, what video highlight reel are they going to show? What moments are they going to show? Are you going to show when he had the 2 home runs against the Oakland A's with 4 people in attendance in a July game back in 2017? Are you going to show him against the Detroit Tigers in a half-empty Angels crowd back in June of some random year? I mean, where are his iconic moments going to be? Where you're in the postseason with a sold-out crowd in a big moment. I mean, look at the World Baseball Classic. He struck out to Shohei Ohtani. That probably was his most viewed moment that we've ever seen for Mike Trout, right? So I think for him to increase his legacy, look, all the ball knowers out there, and that means you, we all know ball. We know that he's one of the greatest to ever do it. There's no doubting that. But I'm just saying the perception of him to the masses, to the casuals, because he should be a bigger star. He should be one of the biggest stars in America, quite frankly. And I think that if he wants to be more aggressive and be a guy that wants to be in the World Series, be in the postseason, join a franchise that wants to compete, that he could go to Artie Moreno and try to force his way out. And I do think there will be teams interested, especially if Artie Moreno is willing to pay down some of that money on a per-year basis. Now, another thing I want to say is I think there's 5 stages of an all-star baseball player. The first stage is the boyhood dream comes true, the dream realized stage. You make your big league debut, your family's there, your friends there, great. You've realized the dream. Then there's the second stage, the proving you belong stage. Are you a legitimate big leaguer? Are you here to stay? Will you go back down? Do you have things to work on, or are you here to stay? That's the second stage. Then the third stage is the smash mouth stage, otherwise known as the hey now you're an all-star stage. So you're young, you're making your first all-star team, you're establishing yourself as one of the bright stars in the game. Then there's the fourth stage, the get the bag stage. Get the big contract, get paid. And then there's the fifth stage. That's the legacy stage. That's the World Series. That's the postseason. That is the MVP awards, the accolades, the Hall of Fame. That is the stage where Mike Trout is at. And we know he's already checked off the big Cooperstown box. There's no doubt about it. He's a Hall of Famer, has over 80 WAR in his career. But the World Series stage, the postseason stage, I think that's something that he wants to pursue, hopefully. I hope that that's something that he's focused on. He's conscientious of the fact that, look, he needs to have that moment. He needs to get an opportunity to see what he can do when the game is at its best, right? So I just hope that he takes advantage of this. Now, will the Dodgers pursue him? I think they won't. I truly believe unless Artie Moreno is willing to pay $15 or $20 million of that salary per year, I doubt they would, because this is a Dodgers franchise. They really need to get younger instead of older. And we've seen this year, we've got 9 rookie debuts, 16 rookies used total, that they are getting younger and they're developing. And you look at that money for Mike Trout and the possible injuries that could come along with it, I just highly doubt they would do that. And I also think, too, if you're able to make that move, you need pitching, especially next year. And to squeeze another World Series title out of a core of Trout and Mookie and Freddie Freeman, it feels like all the infinity stones right there. But I do think that you need more pitching if you're going to win with those guys. And I just don't think if you're going to just ship off all those assets and take all that money, that there's going to be other moves to really make. Now, can they afford it? Yes. Do they have prospect capital? Yes. If they wanted Mike Trout and Mike Trout was willing to waive that no-trade clause and the Angels were willing to trade him to the Dodgers, they would. But, hey, this is the same franchise that wouldn't pick up the phone when it came to Shohei Ohtani. So what makes you think they would trade Trout to the Dodgers? So I do think that, yeah, it's interesting. I've had a lot of you ask me about the potential of Mike Trout to the Dodgers. I just think that the percentage chances are really less than 5%. I don't think that it's likely at all. I don't even think that he's going to get traded from the Angels at any point. Maybe if things change, but still, I think Mike Trout is very stuck in his ways. He's kind of stuck in that Angels bubble. He showed no signs of saying anything to the media that would indicate that he wants out or he's not happy with the situation. Of course, he's not happy with losing, but he's just not that kind of player that wants to force his way out. Look, this is baseball. This is Major League Baseball where the superstar impacts the game the least, right? Football, quarterback impacts the game a lot. Basketball, you have 5 players on the court, impacts the game a lot. Baseball, you need the bullpen. You need depth on the margins. You need guys up and down that lineup. So it's a very tricky sport where the best player will go to the plate 5 times. You can pitch around him, right? And then defensively, he's definitely slipped on that standpoint as well. So for me, I'm saying no unless the Angels are willing to pay down that money. But for the most part, I don't think this is going to be something that is going to be explored to a degree. I think if he's ever really mentioned in trade talks, you'll see the Dodgers, but I just don't think Mike Trout is going to be traded 1 and 2 to the Dodgers. But that's going to do it for this episode of Dodgers Dugout. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DMAC_LA. If you haven't yet, be sure to subscribe to the Dodgers Nation YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that notification bell. Hit that like button. Let me know down below, would you want to see Mike Trout on the Dodgers, even for that gaudy 7 years left on his contract? Would you want that with that kind of money? For me, the answer is no. Want to get younger. Also, anytime I want to pay a player that kind of money, I want to be almost guaranteed I'm going to get some peak years. The Dodgers have gotten peak years from Mookie Betts. They've gotten peak years from Freddie Freeman. Will they get that with Mike Trout? I don't think that there's any way that you could sway me to believe that that would be the case. But if you think you can, let me know down below. And until next time, think blue, bleed blue, and I'm out.